So, Hare Krishna, all the devotees, to our program on Srimad Bhagavatam study. Today is our 17th class, and we will start the chapter number 6 of canto number 1. The title of this chapter is Conversation between Narad and Vyasdev. Most of this chapter is in the form of a story. Uh, there are verses which are some very inspiring verses, but which convey a very deep and profound philosophical point. But these are not many in this chapter, so you will see there will be a lot of slides, and most likely we will move fast in this chapter. Uh, and Today we have more slides than usually we have, so I'm not very sure whether we will be able to finish the complete chapter by today, but we will try to finish it as much as possible. There are total 38 verses in this chapter, so let us begin our journey. In today's class, we I think identified Mangala Mataji for recitation of the prayers. Mangala Mataji, are you there?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please recite these prayers.
Yes. Om Ajnana Timirandascha Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Ena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavancha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitancha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Okay, Mataji, continue.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः.
Excellent, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Excellent, Mataji, very nice. Okay. Now I would like to invite Vasudevan Prabhu to recap our previous class, class number 16. Vasudevan Prabhu is a senior executive in a company by the name Himmat Sinka, and beside being a successful professional in his career, in his life, he is also actively preaching the message of Krishna Bhakti. Vasudevan Prabhu comes from the Shri Sampradaya and have been associated with our classes for, I think, now almost 3 years. He started with Bhagavad Gita and then continuing so far. So a very warm welcome to Vasudevan Prabhu. Please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. If you can also share your video, we can see you also on the screen.
I think my video is on. You
Okay.
can't see me?
Yeah, we can see, yes.
Okay. Shashank Pranam to Prabhuji and Hare Krishna to all the devotees. So I am tasked with recapping Bhagavatam class 16 in which we covered Canto 1, Chapter 5, Slokas 29 to 40. This covered Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. Now, before we started on the subject, Prabhuji briefed us that everybody wants to understand the essence of Vedas. But the Vedas are so vast and so diverse, it's very difficult for somebody in one lifetime to understand, go through everything and understand, etc. So the essence of Vedas is unadulterated bhakti, and for this Bhagavatam is very important. And even for Bhagavatam, this chapter is very important to understand the essence of Bhagavatam. So when you are not able to read the whole thing, then we spend more time on the essence, and from the essence we try to understand the whole subject. That is the spirit. So that's why this chapter has a very important relevance to the whole Bhagavatam. Why Bhagavatam we should study, and what is the importance of Bhagavatam? So in Slokas 29 to 31, Narada shares his experience in developing bhakti. So it is not a theoretical knowledge. Narada is sharing from his personal experience. So that is something we have to understand. So in Sloka 29, Narada says that he was attached to Bhakti Vedantas, and he was obedient and freed from all sins. He was self-controlled, inclined to serve, and strictly followed them with body and mind. So this is very important for any bhakta. For any bhakta, we have to develop these qualities. We have to be obedient, and for freeing from sins, there are several things prescribed. You should eat only prasad, and in the case of Narada, he was eating only the remnants of the what Bhakti Vedantas consume. So all this frees you from sins, and of course, you don't enter into any of the things which are not recommended. We are not going to the details of that. So a bhakta needs to develop these. That is a message for us. And why should a bhakta follow this? What is the attraction for Bhagavata? Bhakta is attracted to Bhagavata by the purity, their purity in all dimensions. So that's because they are pure, their words are pure, their advice is pure, everything they do is pure and benefits us. Now next, moving to Sloka 30, so Narada continues. He says the sages were very kind to the fallen, and as they were about to depart after that Chaturmasya period was over, they mercifully instructed me in the most confidential knowledge, that is Jnanam Gukhyatamam, of pure bhakti, taught by Lord himself. Now, Srila Prabhupada elaborates in his purport that when knowledge is turned into pure devotional service, and the confidential part of transcendental knowledge is attained, it is called most confidential knowledge. Lord himself imparted this to Brahma, Arjuna, and Uddhava, and to Sun God at different points of time, and which the Lord himself has declared in Bhagavad Gita also. Now, moving on to Sloka 31, says Narada continues, by that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energies of Lord Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything, and knowing that one can return to him and meet him. And Prabhuji explained in class in detail the three types of Lord's energies, namely Antaranga energy, Tatastha energy, and Bahiranga energy, and how they influence us. Now, moving forward in Slokas 32 to 36, Narada now explains the process of Karma Yoga. So, Sloka 39, he says, learned men have concluded, O Brahmana. Brahmana is the way he is addressing Vyasadeva, Brahmana. The best treatment for all types of miseries is to surrender all your activities for the Lord's service. We understood in class also that there are three types of miseries, or tapatraya as they are called, which are Adi Bhautik, which is caused by other living beings, Adi Daivik, natural calamities, or which is called by caused by nature, and Adhyatmik. Adhyatmik is caused by our own mind. So Prabhupada in his purport gives specific examples of different categories of people and how they could be of Lord's service, like how a leader can be of Lord's service, how a businessman can be of Lord's service, from different stations, how we can be of service to the Lord. Whatever we are doing, we can be of service to the Lord. Moving on to Sloka 33, a thing when applied therapeutically cures a disease caused by the very same thing. And we have seen this in life. Almost this is the basis of many of the vaccines and many of the medicines, including the snake venom, etc. And in his purport, Prabhupada has given the analogy of milk, and disorder caused by milk is cured by giving curd. Similarly, we have the analogy of iron and red hot iron. Red hot iron is by the association of fire, how its character changes. So the same thing, and this is a principle that we will see in the next sloka, how Narada advises. In sloka number 34, he says, activities which cause perpetual bondage, when dedicated to Lord's service, destroy the tree of work. And now, how this works is, see, whenever we do any work, any karma, there is a reaction, and that reaction may be either a punya or a papa. It may take you to a heaven, or it may take you, whatever, it causes a credit or debit balance. So this is a never-ending cycle, and that is why we have to take repeated birth. Now, how do we get rid of this bond? Even if you do good karma, you have to consume those, enjoy the benefits of the good karma, and then again come back and suffer in the same world. And that's why it is called a bondage. So what Narada is saying here is, the best way is whatever activities we can do the same activity, but when it is dedicated to the Lord's service, then there is no reaction accruing. Any task that you have dedicated to the Lord means there is no reactions accrue, and that is why we get liberated from this bondage. Even good actions also result in bondage, and bad actions also result in bondage. So we have to remember that. So we saw 5 steps from devotion to pure devotion. First is we start with loving service. Once we do loving service, we obtain the mercy of great souls, and this mercy leads to increase in taste for hearing. We saw this in Narada's case also, as he was, by the mercy of this Vedantins, he wanted to hear more and more of Harikatha. Then once your taste for hearing increases, then we start understanding the difference between body and soul. Now, once we understand the body and soul, and as we continue forward in this journey, we'll understand the eternal relationship between the soul and the super soul. And finally, the devotion will grow to full knowledge of the Lord. This is a process, this is a gradual process, and we have to sincerely and dedicatedly work on this, and we progress. Moving on to Sloka 35, whatever work is done in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord generates jnana. Now, this is again Narada's special knowledge. See, we have studied in Gita also about all this karma yoga, etc. But here in short, Narada is explaining. So work done in this life for the satisfaction and mission of the Lord generates jnana. What is this jnana? This spiritual knowledge, which is endowed with bhakti. It is not jnana in the material sense. It's a jnana, spiritual knowledge, which is endowed with bhakti. And in purport, Prabhupada shares that this sloka is in the same lines as sloka 12 of this chapter, where it says the performer becomes purified material affliction. And what is material affliction? Affliction by the 6 diseases, lack, pipe, which is the short form we have, lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. So if we have to get free of this, then we have to surrender all our actions to the Lord. Moving on to Sloka 36, while performing duties according to the order of Lord Krishna, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities. Now, this is very important, because when you are dedicating some work to Lord, it is not just mechanical dedication. The moment you dedicate, if that work happens good also, the credit is to Lord. If that work does not happen well also, then it is all Lord's will. So all the time you will constantly remember the Lord, his names, his qualities, whenever we are dedicating a work to God. And this is a very common practice also among Vaishnavas. Whenever they start any work, they first dedicate it, say, to the Lord, and similarly when they conclude also there's a dedication to the Lord. Now next, Narada moves on to the next subject. In the last 4 shlokas of this chapter, shloka number 37 to 40, Narada teaches personal mantra to Vyasadeva. So in shloka 37, he says, let us chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions, Pratyubda, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. And then he goes on in shloka 38 saying, thus he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form. Purport, Srila Prabhupada in his purport says, by chanting the holy mantras received from a bona fide spiritual master, as per the directions given by him, one can experience the transcendental form by our original spiritual senses. This will gradually lead us near to the Lord. Our original spiritual senses are not active at this point of time. So by following the instructions of a spiritual master in body and mind, like Narada did with his Bhakti Vedanta sense, then slowly over a period of time, we also can get this experience of this transcendental form with our spiritual senses. And it is to be noted here that Lord Vishnu has no material form. He has a spiritual form, but there is no material form. And that is why the transcendental sound or the mantras or the japas, whatever we are doing, they are also representations of the Lord only. They are the Lord in person. Moving on to shloka 39, personal experience of Narada Muni. O Brahmana, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, then with the spiritual opulence, that is the siddhis, and then with his intimate loving service. So Narada explains the process, how it works. So once he get it, he first got the transcendental knowledge, then the opulence, and then his intimate loving service, which is what we have seen earlier also, few slokas back. And then the purport, Prabhupada says, we need to do offenseless chanting, and we need to have unflinching faith in the Lord and the spiritual master. So Lord gradually gives his realization. And the other benefits of this offenseless chanting and having unflinching faith in the Lord and spiritual master is that we also get into mystic opulence and entrustment with specific service of the Lord through our spiritual master. So the most important thing is we have to have unflinching faith in the Lord and spiritual master and follow the instructions of the spiritual master both in body and mind. And then all these experiences can be ours also. Now coming to the last shloka of this chapter, shloka number 40 is a conclusion where Narada concludes by saying to Vyasadeva, please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activities, for that will satisfy the hankerings of there are two things that will, one, satisfy the hankerings of the great learned men, and second, mitigate the miseries of the masses who are suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries. So in a nutshell, Narada is explained to us why Bhagavatam was created. Bhagavatam is created so that by reading this Bhagavatam, even a great learned man will satisfy their hankerings. They will not have any more material hankerings. And similarly, the masses also will be mitigated of their miseries. Miseries are basically lakpai, which we saw a little earlier. So in his purport, Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam is therefore not restricted for any particular class of men or sect. It is meant for the sincere soul who actually wants his own welfare and peace of mind. So with that, I conclude my recap. Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me this opportunity. It was a very good experience, right? And thank you all for a patient hearing. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much, Vasudevan Prabhu, for that crisp and to the point summary recap of the previous class. Very thoroughly done, each point done to the extent it was required to explain. Very nice. Thank you very much. I also encourage other devotees who are not doing the summary service to get this little bit of encouragement, inspiration from devotees who are already doing it. It will further deepen your understanding of the subject and will also give you a practice of maybe doing some public speaking and doing some preaching service in the future. So with that, let us move to the next slide. And okay, now we come to the subject matter of the class today, which is the chapter number 6, and this is the conversation which has started between Narad Muni and Vyasdev in the previous chapter, chapter 5. It now continues to move forward, and Narad Muni is now being asked by Vyasdev to elaborate a little bit on his personal life. So Narad Muni already described some personal instances from his life. He was a son of a maid servant, and how he received Bhakti Vedantas and served them. And the same theme will continue in this chapter, where Vyasadev further asks few questions from Narad Muni, and Narad Muni start to explain those instances, which includes how his mother passed away, and then he left the home, and after he left the home, he actually did some meditation on the form of the Lord, and his meditation was successful in the sense that he also get the darshan of the Lord, a vision of the Lord in his heart. And then he had some voice also instruction received from the Lord, Narad Muni. And then there are few other sections, section 26 to 33, where Narad Muni gives further instructions to Srila Vyasadev and concludes the topic, and then leaves the place. So most of the chapter today, as I mentioned in the beginning, is a story, and there are few very beautiful verses in this chapter which we will recite and discuss a little more deeper. But most of it, as it is a story, so it will the speed of the class will be a bit fast. The slides will move a little faster compared to the other classes. So before we start the class, let me get some names who would like to do the reading in the class today. So let me see who are all there. So Vasudevan Prabhu, you are joining after maybe for a gap, so I will include your name. So are you okay if you can do the reading?
Sure, Prabhuji.
Okay. Then may I also request Jivan Prabhu, will you be available?
Okay, Babuji.
Okay. Then how about Anuradha Mataji, are you available?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
Mangala Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So I will, maybe we can have one more devotee because we have more slides today. And may I request Anita Mataji, will you be available?
Light.
You will be available, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So that is good. So we have 5 devotees. Now let me request first of all Vasudevan Prabhu to help me read the slide which is on the screen. Prabhuji, Vasudevan Prabhu, can you read the slide on the screen? Are you able to hear me? You are on mute. Hare Krishna, Vasudevan Prabhu, are you able to hear?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. I didn't realize I was in mute. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, please. Are you able to see the screen? Are you able to see the letters?
Sutta Goswami. Vyasadeva inquires about Narada's life. Sutta Goswami. Hearing about Narada Muni's birth and activities, Vyasadeva inquired further. Vyasa, what did you do after the departure of the Bhakti Vedantis who instructed you? And 3, how did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body? And then 4, how did you remember that which happened prior to this day of Brahma? Because time destroys everything.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Is it?
Yeah, so you can see the discussion is continuing, and here the very first verse is being spoken by Suta Goswami, who is actually narrating this event to the sages of Naimisharanya. So he's already describing the conversation between Narad Muni and Vyasdev. Why he's describing, if you remember? Because the sages of Naimisharanya asked about the history of Bhagavatam. And that's how this description started, that there was a conversation between Vyasdev and Narad Muni. And chapter 5 was all about that. And so Suta Goswami further says that hearing about Narad Muni's birth and activities, Vyasdev inquired further. And what were those further inquiries? These are several questions, as you can see in verse number 2, 3 and 4. And what are these questions? What did you do after the departure of the Bhaktivedantis who instructed you? So in chapter 5, we saw that Bhaktivedantis visited Narad Muni's house, and Vyasdev is now a little more curious. He's asking that after he left, after these people left, what did you do? What happened after that? How did your life move after Bhaktivedantis left your home? Then this is again the similar thing. How did you pass your life after initiation? Initiation means the Bhaktivedantis actually accepted Narad Muni as his disciple, as their disciple. So this is what the initiation here refers to. And how did you attain this body? So in the previous life, Narad Muni was the son of a maid servant. So Vyasdev was very curious how actually you got this transcendental body of Narada, like what I see you in right now. And then how did you remember that which happened prior to this day of Brahma, because time destroys everything. So now the event that we just discussed in chapter 5, which is about Narad Muni as a son of a maid servant, actually that event held in the previous day of Brahma. Previous day of Brahma would mean, what does it mean? Say one day of Brahma is actually a cycle of 1000 yugas, Chatur yugas. So one cycle means one Satya Yuga, one Treta Yuga, one Dwapar Yuga, and one Kali Yuga. That is one cycle. And like that, there are 1000 cycles, and that comprises of one day of Brahma. So the event that we discussed in chapter 5, Narad Muni as a son of a maid servant, that happened in the previous life of Brahma, previous day of Brahma, sorry. So this discussion that is happening between Narad Muni and Vyasdev is happening in the forthcoming day in the life of Brahma. So Vyasdev is asking that this event that you just described to me in chapter number 5 actually happened in the previous day of Brahma, and that is a very long period. How come you could remember of your previous life so vividly, so graphically? Because of the effect of time, everything is destroyed. Memory also is destroyed. Not only the material things are destroyed in this material world, but memory is also destroyed. So how are you able to remember all that? So these are the several questions that Vyasdev, as a disciple of his guru Narad, is now asking Narad Muni. Okay. Prabhuji, can you read this small text on the slide?
Yes. Purport 162. Making sincere inquiries is important limb of bhakti. This desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is technically known as Sadharma Pricha.
Yeah. Now, if you can remember, where did we study this Sadharma Pricha? We have studied this in our classes. Can anyone remember?
Is it from
In
NOD?
Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5.
No, I think Jivan Prabhu made the right answer. It is from NOD.
Yeah.
NOD is Nectar of Devotion, Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu. So in Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu, we discussed various limbs of bhakti. And one of the limbs of bhakti was asking questions from the spiritual master. So many devotees sometimes feel shy in asking questions. So for such devotees, this is something for you to check and know that even asking a genuine spiritual question from your teacher, from your spiritual master, from your counselor, from your Shiksha Guru, etc., is actually a limb of bhakti. You are doing a bhakti activity when you are asking a question. So Prabhupada is mentioning it in the purport to the second verse. See this verse. what did you do after the departure of Bhaktivedantis? Who instructed you? So as a matter of fact, Prabhupada is mentioning this and highlighting this very important limb of bhakti, that asking question is very important. So you should not keep, devotees should not keep the doubts in their heart, and actually try to reveal them to their spiritual master in confidence, and check for solution. So this is very important part of the limb of bhakti. Okay, Prabhu. Now you can read the different verses, the text of different verses from 5 to 8.
5 to 10. Narada speaks about his mother's departure. 5. The great sages, after imparting transcendental knowledge, Vijnana, departed, and I had to pass my life in this way. Sloka 6. Tie of affection. I was the only son of my mother, Ekatmaja. Being her only shelter, she bound me with tie of affection. Sneha Anubandhanam. Sloka 7. Maintenance. Not being independent, Aswatantra. She could not maintain me properly, although she wanted to. Everyone is a wooden, Dharumai, doll, Yosa, in the hands of puppet master. And sloka number 8, dependence. I was a 5-year-old child living in a Brahmana school, Brahmana Kule. I had no experience of different lands and was dependent on my mother's affection.
Yes. So now, after Vyasdev has asked these various questions, Narad starts to respond to Vyasdev's questions. So first of all, he say, the great sages, after imparting transcendental knowledge. Now here, if you see the Sanskrit verse, the 5th verse, the word mentioned for transcendental knowledge is Vijnana. And departed, and I had to pass my life in this way. So I think I have something from the purport regarding this, the word Vijnana. Prabhu, can you read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. Important symptom after initiation. In his previous life, when Naradji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of the great sages, there was a tangible change in his life, although he was only a boy of 5 years. That is an important symptom visible after initiation by the bona fide spiritual master.
Yes, so it is very important here. Say when you take initiation or Diksha from a bona fide spiritual master, because you are getting spiritual knowledge from the spiritual master, that spiritual knowledge is something which is not simply filling your head. It is actually bringing transformation in your life. Transformation actually means what? You are getting rid of your negative qualities. You are getting rid of this lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. All those things you are getting purified. You are getting more inspired to do bhakti and so on. So this is what it is being mentioned here, that there was a tangible change in the life of Narad Muni after he associated with the Bhaktivedantas. And that is why when you read the 5th verse, the great sages, after imparting transcendental knowledge, that is Vijnana. So the reason why it is known as Vijnana is because it is practical knowledge which actually brings change in the life of the practitioner of this knowledge. So that is why this Vijnana word has been translated as practical transcendental knowledge, which actually brings some tangible change in one's life. Then what Narad Muni says, that after I received that Vijnana and these souls actually departed, I had to pass my life in this way. And then he explains. So in the verse number 6, he is explaining that there was a tie of affection between his mother. His mother was very, very affectionate. Narad Muni was the only relative to the mother. There was no other relative to this lady. She had a very humble background. She was simply a maid servant, a dasi. And I was the only son of my mother, Ekatmaja. So the word Atmaja in Sanskrit means the son of, Atmaja. So if I say Anurag Gupta, Atmaja Suresh Gupta, like my father's name. So Atmaja means son of. I was the only son of my mother. Ek means the only son. Being her only shelter, she bound me with tie of affection. So there was an attachment between Narad Muni and the mother. Then maintenance. So maintenance is being referred here, how Narad Muni's mother would like to maintain her son. So she was not a very resourceful lady. She was simply a maid servant and did not have a lot of money. And Narad Muni is saying not being independent, aswatantra. Independent means probably it is being referred to as financially independent. Because finance, when we have in our life, actually brings some kind of independence to us. If we have sufficient finances in our life, we are a little more free to do whatever we want to do. So she was not independent in the sense that she wanted to raise her son in some particular way, wanted to give her son more resources, more better upbringing, but she was not able to do it because she was financially not very independent. So she could not maintain me properly, although she wanted to. Everyone is a wooden doll in the hands of the puppet master. Wooden doll actually is referring to Kathputli. So Kathputli is not independent. Kathputli is dependent on the actions of the person who is actually trying to play those wooden dolls. So similarly, Narad Muni is trying to say that we were not independent people, we were kind of dependent on our circumstances, and that's how we were. And then dependence. I was a 5-year-old child living in a Brahmana school. I had no experience of different lands and was dependent on my mother's affection. So once again, Narad Muni is giving additional detail that Narad Muni was studying in some simple Brahmana school. Her mother was a maid servant going to house serving different people, probably serving in the Brahmana school as well. And like that, there was a very humble background. Narad Muni now explains to Vyasdev how his life went on after Bhaktivedanta. Bhaktivedantas left their house. Okay, we have already read this slide. Okay, now this slide, Prabhuji, can you read once this slide?
Narada speaks about his mother's departure. Sloka 9, mother's departure. One night, while going to milk a cow, my mother was bitten by a serpent, Sarpo Dasha, influenced by supreme time.
So this is a tragedy that happens in the life of Narad Muni. He was already not from a very opulent background, and on top of it, her only dependent was her mother. Her only shelter was his mother. And one day, when his mother was going to milk a cow, then on the way, on the leg of her mother, a serpent actually bite her mother, and because of the influence of the venom of that snake, her mother passed away. So this was one great tragedy that happened in the life of Narad Muni, and he is explaining that to Vyasdev. Now, Srila Prabhupada has given a very short but a very profound purport to this particular verse, and I would request Prabhuji to read this text.
Purport 169, how the Lord brings back a sincere soul. That is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord.
Yes. So now you can see how Srila Prabhupada is looking at the event. In general, if you see, when we have to, people in this world, when they will look at this event, they will actually really pity Narad Muni. Oh, how unfortunate. Only mother, only relative, so poor person. There's nothing this person has as his resources. And only affectionate mother that he had, she also was bitten by a snake. And look at this person, only 5-year-old child. So this is the general way people in this world would look at this particular event. But a devotee, when he looks at these events, he looks through the eyes of the Shastra. So this is something what Prabhupada is saying, that The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken away, taken from this world by the supreme will. And then what he says, in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. In order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. Now, Narad Muni, although he might appear as a 5-year-old child, but we have already seen in chapter number 5, Narad Muni was already very exalted, at a very exalted stage of bhakti. Narad Muni was already at a stage of bhava and prema, as we discussed in the previous chapter. So, as far as Narad Muni is concerned, Narad Muni took this in a very different way. And it will be clear in the next verse. So Prabhupada is already giving this hint here, in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. So Narad Muni, being a very exalted devotee, he understood how to look at such events in his life. He did not become very overwhelmed by such event of by such very reversal of events in the life. He did not start to blame the Lord. He did not start to blame people around him and like that. He understood that life and death in this world, it is dukhalayam ashashvatam. Dukhalayam means only miseries are there in this world. This has been actually stamped by the Supreme Lord in Bhagavad Gita. So if we are expecting that every time we will be enjoying in this world, we are not having the right knowledge about this world. So Prabhupada is making this observation that Narad Muni took this event as a mercy of the Lord, and there was some attachment between the mother and the son, and now because of the death of the mother, that attachment was taken away from the Lord, and now Narad Muni was fully dependent completely on the mercy of the Lord. Okay. Let us read this one, Prabhuji, 10th one.
5:10. Narada speaks about his mother's departure. 10. I took this as a special mercy or anugraham of the Lord, who always desires benedictions for his devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north.
Yeah, now you can see the vision of a pure devotee, Narad ji, although a 5-year-old boy, but already at a very exalted stage of devotion. So the vision of a pure devotee or an exalted devotee is very different. The devotees look at the event of these a very I would say challenging reversal in life in a very different way. So Narad Muni is saying, I took this as a special mercy, anugraham of the Lord, who always desires benedictions for his devotees, and so thinking I started for the north. So Narad Muni did not become overwhelmed. He did not start to blame people around him for this kind of event in his life. And the lesson for us is that we also, as aspiring devotees of the Lord, should look such reversal in our life in a very mature way. Like for example, Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita saw his killing of his relative as a mercy. So as a misery, saw the killing of his relative as a misery. But then Lord mentioned to him that these are your relatives. That is correct. And if you have to kill them, then you should actually look in a way which is dharmic in nature. So you should not tolerate the adharmic activities your relatives have done. You should not tolerate them. Rather, you should tolerate the killing or separation from your relatives. So this is how a devotee actually sees the world. He sees the world through the eyes of the Shastra. He understands what is to be done, what is not to be done, where one should tolerate and where one should not tolerate. So in the case of Arjuna, Lord advised Arjuna not to tolerate the adharma that was being done by Duryodhana, and maybe because Bhishma and Drona were also supporting Duryodhana, you should not tolerate that. Rather, you should tolerate the separation from your relatives. You should tolerate the pain you will get because of the separation from your relatives. So the point is, dear devotees, that as a devotee, we should be trained to look at the reversal in life in a very mature way and not get into the game of blaming others, blaming the Lord when such reversals happen in our own life. So that is the main message. Okay, Prabhu, last slide that you should read, please.
Purport 1.6.10. Learn to see reversals with maturity. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it.
Yeah, so mundane people misunderstand such events. But when these reversals come in our life, we should look at them. Probably the Lord is trying to teach some lesson to us, or maybe Lord is giving this event to us in our life, maybe because of our past karma. We had done some bad karma and we are suffering in this life because of that. Or maybe we had committed some offense towards some devotees, towards the Lord, etc. Or maybe the Lord, in the life of devotees, generally when the Lord gives these kind of miseries, maybe it is mainly to make that devotee a bit more mature, to look at the devotional life or to look at the life in a much more better way, or for his own purification, like that. Sometimes the Lord gives these miseries in the life of pure devotees also. But in the life of pure devotees, when such miseries are given, that is mainly for their glorification. For example, we saw how in life of Srila Prabhupada, he had so many challenges. But Prabhupada overcame all those challenges with flying colors. And that is why we see that how Prabhupada is being glorified in the world today. So like that, we have to look at these miseries in a very mature way. Okay, now I will request Jivan Prabhu to start reading from this slide.
Okay, Prabhuji. Text number 11 to 19, Narada's travels, meditation and vision of the Lord. 11 to 13, travels through varieties of Lord's creations. I passed through many towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, different gardens and mountains, lakes fit for demigods with bees and lotuses. I passed through deep park, dangerously fearful forests, which were the playgrounds of snakes, owls, and jackals.
Yeah. So here Narad Muni is further elaborating what actually he experienced in his travel. So he says that he passed through many towns, villages, farms, mines, agricultural lands, mountains, lakes, etc., etc. So he's giving some account of what did he saw when he was traveling. And Prabhupada makes a very relevant observation regarding this. We will see in the next slide. And then he also says that he passed through very dangerous places. Dangerous places means deep, dark, dangerously fearful forests, which were the playgrounds of snakes, owls, and jackals. So Narad Muni, because he was already a very exalted stage of devotion, he was not fearful, although he went through those places which were seemingly very, very fearful. So let us see what Prabhupada has to say in his purports to verse number 11 to 13. Let us read. So first of all, read the first one, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay. Purport 1.6, 11 to 13. Similar life before present creation. Man's activities in agriculture, mining, industries, etc. were all on the same scale as they are now, even previous to the present creation, and the same activities will remain as they are even in the next creation. After millions of years, the history of the universe repeats itself. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavators without searching into the vital necessities of life.
Now you can see how Prabhupada is so sharp in his commenting, in his purports. If you read these verses from 11, 12 and 13, To a normal eye, it might seem simply a description that when Narad Muni was going in the direction of north, he saw some towns, villages, he went through some forests, etc., etc. But Prabhupada is making a very unique observation here. And what is his observation? As I mentioned to you, this activity or this incident of Narad Muni as a maid servant, as a son of maid servant, actually happened in the previous day of Brahma. Previous day of Brahma means it happened at the end of the day of Brahma. The whole of creation actually annihilates. It actually enters into the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So everything gets destroyed. And in the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, it remains there for a very long period. And then new creation happens, and then so on. So the discussion that is happening between Vyasdev and Narad Muni right now is actually happening in the later day of Brahma. And Prabhupada is making this observation that in the previous day of Brahma, when Narad Muni as a son of maid servant was traveling, he saw towns, he saw villages, he saw forests, he saw all kind of mining, agricultural activities that were going on. So the point was that it happened even in the previous day of Brahma when there was a different creation. And now also we see these kind of creations happening before us. So the point is that the human civilization develops in the same way when new creation happens. So every day of Brahma there is a new creation. So Prabhupada is making this point that every time there is a new creation, the human civilization grow in the same way. And these excavationists, like archaeological excavationists, they kind of try to understand what was happening in the previous 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. Simply they are wasting their time, because it is going to be in the same way every time the creation is happening. So rather than doing all those excavation, one should focus their time and energy in searching for the vital necessities of life. And what are the vital necessities of life? It is actually bhakti towards the Supreme Lord. Okay, the next one, Prabhuji.
How to renounce family life in this age? In this age, Shravana and Kirtan is strongly recommended, and one who takes the vow of renunciation of family life need not imitate the Parivrajacharya like Narada, but may sit down at some holy place and devote his whole time and energy to hear and repeatedly chant the holy scriptures left by the great acharyas like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavana.
Yeah, so what the point here is, so the devotees are hearing this story and they are seeing that, okay, Narad Muni, after attaining that initiation from the Bhakti Vedantas, actually started to move towards north. He went through various dangerous places and so on and so forth. He went through jungles, he went through forests. So it does not necessarily mean that if we also want to grow in our own bhakti, we should go to forests, we should go to jungles, we should go to these dangerous places. No, not needed. So Prabhupada is saying that today we are in this age of Kali Yuga, we need not actually renounce our family life and imitate like Parivrajacharya. Parivrajacharya would mean in simple terms traveling preacher. So not imitate like the traveling preacher like Narad, but may sit down and go to some holy place and do some Shravan and Kirtan, and do this Shravan and Kirtan, read the holy scriptures which are left by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, like by Rup Goswami. We have already studied Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu, we have studied Updeshamrat. So the point is, if we want to renounce our family life for moving forward in our spiritual life, that is not required, that is not needed. We can simply do it with our family while staying in our family and still continue to progress. So that is the point Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport. Okay, read further, Prabhuji. You need to unmute, Prabhu.
I'm sorry, bro. 11 to 19, Narada's travels, meditation and vision of the Lord. 14, tired physically and mentally, I took bath and drank water in a river. Thus I was relieved from my exhaustion.
Yeah, so Narad Muni is giving a very graphical details. he was very tired mentally and physically, and found some river, took a bath, drank water. That gave him a lot of relief from the tiredness, from the exhaustion. Continue further, Prabhu.
Text number 15. Meditated. Under the shadow of a banyan tree, I meditated on the super soul using my intelligence as I had heard from the Tejas.
So Narad Muni already was trained by the Bhaktivedantas how to do the meditation on the Lord. So he took that bath, got a bit more relaxed, relieved from his tiredness, and then he sat under the tree, a banyan tree, and did some meditation. And here he is mentioning how he meditated, what technique did he use, as I had heard from the sages. As I had heard from the sages. So on this particular point, Prabhupada mentions something in his purport. Please read.
Meditate according to the scriptural directions. One should not meditate according to one's personal whims. One should know perfectly well from the authoritative source of scriptures through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master, and by proper use of one's trained intelligence for meditating upon the super soul dwelling within every living being.
Yes, so Narad Muni is saying that, Prabhupada ji is saying that we should not do these spiritual practices according to our own whims and fancies. There are particular way these processes are to be done, and from where we should learn these processes. Either we should learn them from scriptures, from our bona fide spiritual masters, so they know how to do this because they are already doing this technique, they are already using these techniques, they are making progress, so they know what these techniques are and how they are to be used. So similarly, Narad Muni is also saying that I did that meditation according to what I have learned from the Bhaktivedantas. Okay. Now we have a small Sanskrit verse, so we will recite this verse. The verses are where I am giving a Sanskrit verse that you should understand they are important. They contain some important message. Let us see what this Sanskrit verse has to say. Dhyayatascha ranambhojam
Dhyayata charanambojam
bhava nirjita chetasaha
bhava nirjita chetasa
outkanthya shrukalakshasya
outkantakshara outkantya shru
kalakshasya
kalakshasya
hridyasinme shanairharihi.
Vidi asin me shane harihi.
Okay. So what this verse is saying is Dhyayatash Charnam Bhujam. Dhyayatash Charnam Bhujam. As I meditated upon Lord's lotus feet. So Narad Muni is now sitting under the banyan tree, and according to the techniques, the description, the process he has learned from the Bhaktivedantas, he is now meditating. And he is describing it as I meditated upon Lord's lotus feet. Dhyayatash, meditate. Charnam Bhujam. Charna is lotus feet, and Amboja actually means lotus. And how he is doing this meditation? Is he doing this meditation while yawning, while sleeping? What is the way he is doing this meditation? Bhava nirjita chetasaha. Bhava nirjita chetasa. Bhava means with lot of transcendental love. There is an emotion in the heart of Narad Muni. There is a lot of loving sentiment in the heart of Narad Muni. There is a lot of loving sentiment in the heart of Narad Muni with transcendental love. Bhava nirjita. And then while he is doing so, Autkantya Ashru Kalakshasya. Autkantha Ashru Kalakshasya. Autkantya means with lot of eagerness. Tears rolled from my eyes due to longing, eagerness or longing, because he dearly wanted to meditate upon the Lord's form. Tears were rolling from his eyes. So, as you know, Narad Muni is already at a stage of prema, bhava and prema. Prema, not completely evolved prema, but at the beginning stage of prema, Narad Muni is there. So with transcendental love, and then there are some bodily symptoms being described, tears rolled from my eyes due to longing. And then Hridya Asin me Shanair Hari. Gradually Krishna appeared on the lotus of my heart. So you see, Narad Muni applied the technique nicely, correctfully, what he learned from the Bhakti Vedantas. After applying that technique nicely with the right emotions, he saw some bodily symptoms with tears rolling from his eyes. And then what happened? He got the result of that meditation. Gradually, Krishna appeared on the lotus of my heart, mentions Narada. Okay, next one, Prabhuji, we will read this.
Okay.
प्रेमातिर्भर निर्भिन्न
Prematir Nirbhinna
पुलकांगोति निर्वृताः
Pulakangoti Nirvita
आनंद संप्लवे लीनो
Ananda Samplavalino
ना पश्यामु भयं मुने.
Na Pashyam Bayam Mune.
Very nice. Okay. So kindly mute your phone, Prabhuji, and unmute once you read. Okay. Premati bhara nirbhinna. Premati bhara nirbhinna. Premati bhara. Bhara means he was actually overwhelmed with prema, exceedingly overpowered by happiness. So when the Lord appeared in the heart, when the Lord appeared in the heart of Narad Muni, he had the darshan of the Lord. What happened to Narad Muni? Exceedingly overpowered by happiness. Premati bhara nirbhinna. And then pulakango ti nivrataha. Pulak ango. Pulaka means prasannata. Pulak means happiness. So every limb of the body of Narad Muni was filled with happiness. Every part of my body became separately enlivened. Pulak ango tin nivrataha. And then Anand samplave lino. Absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy. Samplave lino. Lean means absorbed. Anand means ecstasy. Now happiness is one degree of joy, and Ananda is a little more above than simple happiness. So absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy. Ananda samplave. Samplave means actually ocean of ecstasy. Too much Ananda. Then na pashyam ubhayam mune. I could not see myself or the Lord. So Narad Muni saw the darshan of the Lord in the heart. He got a lot of emotional ecstasy, lot of emotional joy, what we see when we have the darshan of the Lord. But at the same time, quickly, within seconds, within minutes, that joy was gone, that darshan was gone. So he was given that video clip, like we see the trailer. We see the trailer of the movie. So Narad Muni got the trailer of the darshan of the Lord. Even 1 or 2 minutes after that trailer was gone, the trailer was withdrawn. The Lord withdrew the darshan that he was offering to Narad Muni. So I could not see myself or the Lord. Okay, Prabhu, can you please read this?
Purport 1.6.17. Enlivened senses on the darshana of the Lord. After seeing the Lord, all his senses become fully awakened to render service unto the Lord, because in the liberated state, the senses are fully efficient in serving the Lord. Example, Dhruva Maharaja, power of speech became enlivened.
So we see this example in the case of Dhruv Maharaj also. So when Dhruv Maharaj got the darshan of the Lord, he was not able to speak. He was completely clueless what to say. He wanted to offer prayers, but he could not speak. But then, by the mercy of the Lord, Dhruv Maharaj senses actually became enlivened. He got his power of speech, and using his power of speech, he actually he spoke many beautiful prayers to the glorification of the Lord. So when we have the darshan of the Lord, one of the symptoms is that our senses become very enlivened, and in those enlivened stage of senses, the devotee is actually very eager to serve the Lord. So that is what is being mentioned here. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Number 18, perturbed on losing the form. Upon losing the form of the Lord, which satisfies the mind and vanquishes all lamentation, I was perturbed.
Now you can imagine that the darshan of the Lord can bring so much of ecstasy in our body, so much of ecstasy in our mind, so much joy to us, that when you just lose that form, it is something very, very disturbing to the devotees, very, very perturbed. So that is the emotion that Narad Muni is now expressing here, that he was very perturbed on losing the form. So that form which actually satisfies the mind, which vanquishes all lamentation, which brings so much of ecstasy, once that form is lost, he was very, very perturbed, very much anxious on losing that form. Okay, please read.
Purport 1.6.18. Lord's form is special. These are the special features of the transcendental form of the Lord, and one who has once seen that form is not satisfied with anything else. No form in the material world can any longer satisfy the seer.
Yeah, so Lord form is so nice, so special, that if once we see that form, we don't want to see anything else. Actually, when the living entity come in this world, he is actually seeing seeking opportunities, seeking ways and means to enjoy. He would see something, he would see another thing, and want to try to derive some pleasure out of those things. But the living entity cannot derive any pleasure from the things of this material world. Actually, the real joy, real satisfaction that a living entity can get, complete satisfaction the living entity can get, is by seeing that form of the Lord. So that is the speciality of that Lord's form. Okay, now we will request Mangala Mataji to kindly do the reading. Mangala Mataji, are you
Yes,
there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay. So Mataji, once you read and I am
Yeah.
doing the explanation, kindly go on
Yeah,
mute,
yeah.
because sometimes the background noise actually
Yeah,
comes.
sure.
Okay. So please read this 19th one.
Narada's travels, meditation, and vision of the Lord. Dissatisfied. Despite my desire and attempts to concentrate and see that form again, I could not see, and thus I was dissatisfied and aggrieved.
Okay, now what Narad Muni is trying to do is, he used the techniques he learned from the Bhaktivedantas. He once again started that technique. He focused on the lotus form of the Lord. He focused on the lotus feet of the Lord. He looked inward, and whatever he learned from the Bhaktivedantas, he used every technique he learned from them, and once again started to try that, let me get that darshan of the Lord again. Let me try that technique. Let me get that darshan of the Lord again. Like we do something, we get that thing, and we enjoy with that thing. We enjoy to an extent that we actually want to enjoy that thing once again. So if we lose that thing, we want to once again use the same technique to enjoy that thing. So something similar Narad Muni is trying to do. He's once again trying to use the same techniques to get that vision. Oh, that vision was so nice. That vision was so beautiful. I was feeling so ecstatic. Let me once again use those techniques. But he was dissatisfied. That Lord was not appearing in his vision again. And why? Let us see what Prabhupada has to say on that. Yeah. Please read. Unmute and read.
Purport 1.6.19. Darshana of the Lord is simply His causeless mercy. There is no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before our vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like.
Yeah. So the point is, Lord is not our servant. We cannot demand the Lord, hey Lord, please come. I want to have ecstasy. Please come. I have learned techniques from Bhaktivedantas. I am using that technique. Please come and give darshan to me. Because I want to feel joyful. My senses want to feel enlivened. My senses want to feel serving like you, and so on and so forth. No. Darshan of the Lord is simply by His causeless mercy. So we can make our attempt. Our effort is certainly needed in this whole process. But that attempt cannot be completed, cannot be counted as successful unless there is a mercy of the Lord also involved. And Prabhupada explained it with a very nice graphic example, that if we are in night, during night time, and we want simply that sun to appear at our sweet will, the sun is not going to appear. We have to wait. We have to wait for the day, then only the sun will appear. So we cannot demand the Lord to be present before our vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. So this is very important one, because people generally, when we go to people and say to them that please accept Krishna Bhakti, please, can you show me the Lord? Can you show me the Lord? I don't believe that the Lord exists. Can the Lord come before me? Only when the Lord will come before me, I will be interested in this devotional service. So this is the point what Prabhupada is trying to say, that Lord is not our master. He gives darshan to us because of his own causeless mercy. Okay, next point, Mataji.
Wait patiently for the mercy. One should simply await the opportunate moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service of the Lord.
Yes, so our part is that we serve the Lord. Lord's part is that he is willing to give darshan or not. That is his prerogative. Our prerogative is that we should continue to serve the Lord, and we will get the result. We will certainly get the result at the right moment when the Lord will so desire. So one should simply await for the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty, the devotional service of the Lord. Okay, next, Mataji.
20-25. Lord instruct and consoles Narada. 20. Seeing my attempts, the Lord, who is inexpressible by words,
Agochara
Giram, spoke to me with gravity, Gambhira
Shalakshana,
Vacha, and pleasing words to mitigate my grief. 21. You will not see me again in this lifetime. Those who are incomplete in service, Kuyojanam, immature and not free from material taints,
Avipakva Kashayanam,
Avipakva
Kashayanam,
cannot see me. 22. To increase your desire for me, I showed myself to you once. The more one hankers for me, the more he will be freed from material desires.
Okay. Now Narad Muni is trying to use the same technique to get the darshan of the Lord. He's trying again and again, and he's not getting that darshan, so he's getting aggrieved, he is getting frustrated, perturbed, etc., etc. So because Narad Muni was making an attempt again and again, and Lord was not in the mood of giving that darshan again, this time he comes in the in front of Narad Muni in the form of a voice. So before, Narad Muni got a video, a darshan of the Lord, graphically a video. This time he is only getting the audio. He is only hearing the voice from the Akashvani. Internally he is getting that voice. So he is saying, seeing my attempts, the Lord, who is inexpressible by words, Agocharo Giram, inexpressible by words, spoke to me with gravity. Gravity means very heavy voice, very serious voice. Gambhira Shalakshanaya, and pleasing words to mitigate my grief. So the Lord, he got that audio inside him. He heard that voice of the Lord inside him, and that voice had two qualities. It was Gambhira, it was full of gravity, and it was very pleasing. Pleasing too. And why he spoke? The Lord spoke mainly to mitigate the grief of Narad Muni. What did the Lord spoke? You will not see me again in this lifetime. Sir, I gave you enough video. This time, this much, the trailer only you are expected to see, and you will not get to see me in this lifetime again. That clarity he mentioned, very clear. Those who are incomplete in service, Kuyoginam, immature and not free from material taints, vipakva kashayanam cannot see me. So why I am not giving you that vision? Because right now your development of your bhakti at least is not complete. It is still a little bit in the immature stage. Those who are in incomplete service, immature and not free from material taints. Actually, Narad Muni was not with material taints. He was already at the stage of bhava and prema. So he was not at the stage of anartha nivritti. The anarthas were already gone. Uh, uh, but the Lord was trying to say, why he's not giving that vision? Because he is still at the level of immature prema. His prema was at the stage of infancy. So the Lord wanted to that Narad Muni grow his prema at a more mature stage, at a more youthful stage. So Narad Muni was only at a very beginning stage of prema. That is why the Lord was not giving darshan to Narad Muni. To increase your desire for me, I showed myself to you once. So somebody might ask that if his prema was not completely mature, then why did the Lord give him darshan? So this is the answer that Lord is giving. To increase your desire for me, I showed myself to you once. So just give you the hint, give you a little glimpse of what it is like serving me. The more one hankers for me, the more he will be freed from material desires. So that is the message the Lord gave to Narad Muni. First of all, he showed him the video. Narad Muni felt very joyful, very ecstatic. Then the video was withdrawn and Narad Muni felt very perturbed, very disturbed, aggrieved. Then he continued to make the attempt to see the Lord again. Then the Lord appeared as an audio in which he gave this message that you will not see me again, very clear. And I showed you this glimpse only mainly to give you more hankering for me. Okay. Mataji, please read. Unmute and read. Please unmute and read. Mataji, are you there?
Key for realizing the Lord. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in his service because his service and his person are identical.
Yeah, so this is mainly for those devotees who might feel, say, see, we are not that at the level of Narad Muni. How can we see the Lord? Maybe for us, there is no hope at all. So for such emotions, Prabhupada is giving some solace here in the purport. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of the Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in his service because his service and his person are identical. So when we serve the Lord, when we serve the devotees of the Lord, actually we feel joyful. And when we feel this joy, we should understand that Lord is reciprocating with us. Lord is giving a part of darshan, of that bliss of devotional service to us when we are doing all that. So key to realizing the Lord is that we continue to be engaged in his service because his service and his person are identical. There is no difference. Okay. Yes, Mataji. Unmute and read.
21 to 25.
Here,
Lord instructs
from here.
and compels Narada.
Hmm.
23. By service of the absolute truth and the devotees, Sat Sevaya, even for a short time,
Adhirgaya.
one becomes firmly fixed in me, and after giving up this deplorable world and low-born body, one becomes my associate. 24. Even the time factor cannot destroy one's devotional service. By my mercy, your memory will continue even at the time of creation and annihilation.
Yes. So by service of the absolute truth, now the Lord is continuing to speak. So Lord already gave that audio and that audio is continuing. Say, you should not feel frustrated because I'm not giving you darshan. Continue to do your bhakti. Continue to do your bhakti. And there the Lord himself is glorifying the bhakti. He's saying, by service of the absolute truth and the devotees, by service of the absolute and the devotees, Sat Sevaya. Sat Sevaya, even for a short time, Adhirghaya. Short time means a dirghaya. Dirgh means very long, a dirgha means a short time. One becomes firmly fixed in me, and after giving up this deplorable world and low-born body, one becomes my associate. So, Lord is giving some encouraging words. Continue to do your bhakti, not only to me, but to the devotees also. And even if you do it a little bit, you will actually one day leave this world and will actually become my associate, become my parshad. Okay. Even the time factor cannot destroy one's devotional service. By my mercy, your memory will continue even at the time of creation and annihilation. Now here, you see Narad Muni is giving answer to the question of Vyasadev. So in Vyasadev, in the beginning, you remember, Vyasadev asked Narad Muni, you were born as a maid servant, son, in the previous day of Brahma. How can you remember even now? So here the Lord himself is said to Narad Muni, even the time factor cannot destroy one's devotional service. By my mercy, your memory will continue even at the time of creation and annihilation. So in the previous day of Brahma, when the day of Brahma got over, annihilation took place. Narad Muni entered into the body of Lord Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and once again when the creation happened, he came out from the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and this time he came out as the son of Lord Brahma. Please read.
25. Then that supreme authority, Mahat, who is personified by sound, Nabaha Lingam,
Lingam.
and unseen by the eyes, Alingam, stopped speaking, and I bowed my head in gratitude.
Okay, now Lord is saying that, okay, after giving me all that video and audio experience, the audio experience was done in the later part, and now the audio was also withdrawn. But when the audio was withdrawn, Narad Muni did not feel frustrated. He actually felt very grateful to the Lord to give his darshan, only even if it was only for a brief moment, and then explaining Narad Muni from within Narad Muni that you will not see me again, you continue to do your bhakti, even bhakti done for a small time is actually permanent and it will not be wasted, it will not be ruined, and so on. Please continue on the path of bhakti. Okay, please read, Mataji.
No difference between speech and darshan of the Lord. That the personality of Godhead was not seen, but only heard, does not make any difference. The personality of Godhead produced the four Vedas by his breathing, and he is seen and realized through the transcendental sound of the Vedas.
Yeah, so many times people want to see the Lord. So here Prabhupada is saying in the purport that there is no difference between the vision of the Lord, darshan of the Lord, and the sound of the Lord. So we probably may not have the vision of the Lord right now, but we are having the sound of the Lord available to us 24/7, 365 days. And how do we have it? We have it in the form of the books, the Vedic books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and so on. So there is no difference between the vision of the Lord and the sound of the Lord. And that sound is available to us in the form of these transcendental books, the Vedic books like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc. Okay, now we have a verse, the verse number 26. So, Mangala Mataji, this will be your last slide for reading, and then we will move to some other devotee. Maybe this time we will give it to Anita Mataji. Okay. This is a very beautiful verse. Namanyanantasya hatatrapah pathan.
Namane antatasya hatatrapah patham.
Guhyani bhadrani kritani cha smaran.
Guhyani bhadrani kritani cha smaran.
Gam paryatam tushta mana gataspraha.
Gam paratam sa tushta managata spraha.
Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsaraha.
Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatarasraha.
Very nice. Okay. Namanya Anantasya Hata Trapaha Pathan. Now follows Lord's instructions until death. Now we are moving to the next section. After this vision of the Lord, after this instruction from the Lord, etc., etc., Narad Muni continues to follow Lord's instruction, continues to follow the life of pure devotional service. And what does he do? Namanya Anantasya Hatatrapa Pathan. I repeatedly chanted Lord's holy name and fame. This is what he did. And then Guhyani Bhadrani Kritani Cha Smaran, ignoring all formalities of the material world. He did not consider anything else in the material world important, simply chanted Lord's holy name and fame. And then what did he do? Gam Paryatams Tushta Mana Gata Spraha. Paryatam means traveling. Paryatan means sightseeing. Like Paryatan, we know this is the word in Hindi. I don't know what does it call in Kannada. Paryatan means going out places going to maybe some hill station and so on. That is typically known as Paryatan. And here Paryatan means he was traveling. And thus I traveled. How did he travel? In what consciousness he traveled? Tushtamana. Tushtamana means he was very satisfied. Gata Spraha means he was detached. He did not have any attraction or any attachment to worldly things. Gata Spraha. And then Kalam Pratikshan. Kalam Pratikshan means he was very patient. He was very patiently waiting for the result of his devotional service. He was not making any unnecessarily, he was getting impatient. Vimado means without mada. Humble. Vimado, he was very humble. And Vimatsaraha, and non-envious. He was Vimatsaraha. So like that, Narad Muni traveled far and wide with this kind of emotion, with this kind of sentiment, and he was constantly, what he was doing, he was chanting Lord's glory, name and fame. So he was doing Harikatha. That's what he was doing. Okay. Please read.
Job of pure devotee. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, and, according to personal capacity, to distribute the message of others' welfare without motive of material gain.
Yeah, now this is an instruction for all of us. How do we want to lead our life as a devotee? We simply do the holy name, remember the holy name, fame and pastimes of the Lord, do Harikatha, do chanting, Shravan Kirtan we do, and to whatever small, little, big capacity we have, whatever capacity we have, we engage in distributing this message to others. Now I gave you the example of Vasudevan Prabhu, another devotee that used to come to our class, Vrindavaneshwari Mataji in my hometown. She is also involved in the preaching work. And for preaching work these days, you don't need to do a very, very big thing. You simply can use your Facebook account or your YouTube account to generate some videos and distribute to your near and dear ones. Say, I learned some shloka of Bhagavad Gita. I have recorded it as per my understanding in this video. Can you have 5 minutes to look at this video? And simply they can, this way you can influence to many, many people around you. Okay, now we give opportunity to Anita Mataji. Mataji, are you there? Are you ready?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes.
Okay, please read.
26 to 33, Narada's full perfection. 27. In due course of time, I who was absorbed in Lord Krishna and thus detached and free from all material chains met with death. 28. Quitting the material body made of 5 elements, I received a spiritual body befitting an associate of the Lord.
Yeah, now Narad Muni is giving another answer to the question that was asked by by Vyasadeva. How did you get this body of Narad Muni? So here Narad Muni is giving that example that he continued to do his bhakti practices, and in due course of time he was already very much absorbed in Lord Krishna and thus detached and freed from all material taints, and then ultimately one day this body has to get over. And Narad Muni also met the same fate. His body was over. He met with his death. And he met with his death, but when he died and he quitted his body, he received a spiritual body, befitting an associate of the Lord. So Narad Muni perfected his life. He actually, when he passed away, he received a spiritual body, and that's what you see in the picture here. Okay. Yes, Mataji.
29. At the end of previous Kalp, when the Lord breathed in at the time of universal devastation, I entered his body along with Brahma.
Yeah, now somebody might say that we know you as a son of Brahma. In the previous Kalpa, you were son of a maid servant. So, okay, you are a son of maid servant, that we understand, but now you are called as son of Brahma. And how did it happen? So Narad Muni is explaining. At the end of previous Kalpa, when the Lord breathed in at the time of universal devastation, I entered his body along with Brahma. So together both of them entered Lord's body, Garbhodaksha Vishnu's body. And then Mataji, please read.
After 1,000 yuga cycles, when a Brahma woke up, I also appeared along the 10 rishis.
Yes. So day of Brahma, Brahma slept, and when the Brahma was slept, nothing was happening. And when once again Brahma woke up, when Brahmaji woke up, then once again the creation started. And Narad Muni also came out from the body of the Lord together with the 10 rishis. So that is the little history Narad Muni is narrating here. Okay, more Mataji.
31. Liberated spaceman. Since then, by Lord Vishnu's grace, I travel unrestrictedly both in spiritual and material worlds. Since I am fixed in unbroken devotional service.
Okay.
Power of chanting. Thus I travel constantly singing Hari Katha and playing this veena gifted to me by the Lord. As soon as I chant, the Lord, whose activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears in my heart as if called for.
Yes. Now here Narad Muni is further elaborating what he's doing as Narad Muni. He appeared in the next creation as Narada along with Brahma, and then he is traveling unrestrictedly. So normally normal living entities, they are not able to travel to one loka to another, but a living entity, the entities at a higher realm actually have the power to travel to other realms also. But Narad Muni actually has this benediction from the Lord that he can actually go to Patal Lok, he can go to Satya Lok, go to earthly planets, even go to the spiritual world, go to the Golok Dham Vrindavan. Personally, he can go to the Lord's Dham and have personal audience with him. So Narad Muni is like a transcendental spaceman. A transcendental spaceman, he can travel anywhere. So that is happening only because of Lord Vishnu's grace. Then he travels constantly, he sings Hari Katha playing on his veena. And who gifted this veena? Lord Vishnu gave this veena to him. And as soon as Narad Muni chants on his veena, Lord appears in his heart as if called for, as if somebody has called for Lord, and the Lord actually came running into the heart of Narad Muni. So like that Narad Muni is describing his life. Okay. Yes, Mataji. We have a verse here, 34th verse. So we will recite this Sanskrit verse, a very beautiful verse. Etadhya atura chittanam
Etadhyutara chittanam
matra sparshe chaya muhu
matra sparshe chaya muhu
bhavasindhu plavo drishto
bhavasindhu plavo drishto
haricharyanuvarnanam.
Haricharyanuvarnanam.
Yeah, so now Narad Muni is glorifying the holy name of the Lord. So he's saying, Etadhya atura chittanam. Atura means anxiety. Chittanam means heart. So for those who are full of anxieties, due to what? Matra sparshachya muhu. Matra sparshachya. Constantly desiring sense objects. For those people, Bhavasindhu plavo drishto. To cross the material ocean, Haricharya anuvarnanam. Haricharya anuvarnanam. Haricharya. Hari means Lord Hari. Haricharya anuvarnanam. Hari Katha. Paricharcha, like we call Paricharcha. So Haricharya. Hari Katha is the most suitable boat. So you can see here in the picture there is a boat shown, and there is a Bhavasindhu, material ocean. So if you want to cross over this material ocean where there are people with lot of who are actually full of anxieties because they are desiring a lot of sense objects. For such people, Haricharya, the discussion about the Lord's topic is like a boat, and using this boat one can cross over this material ocean. Yes, Mataji, please read.
Purport: redirect the propensity to act. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter.
Yeah, now here Prabhupada is giving a very fundamental question, fundamental observation. So we are spirit soul, and as a spirit soul, we are always want to do some activity. We are always looking for some activity. It is not possible to make the spirit soul restless, rested. It is always restless, continue to want to do something. So Prabhupada is saying that it is the inherent, intrinsic nature of the soul to be active all the time. Now we need some activity. We always want to do something. So if we want to do something, better engage ourselves in those activities which are going to free us ourselves from this material existence. No one can check the thinking activities of the living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working process. But if one wants actual happiness, one must simply change the subject matter only. Right now, we are using this propensity of activity in material activities. But if we redirect this propensity of doing something into spiritual activities, we will be liberated. We will be with the Lord. Okay, this is your last slide, Mataji. Yeah.
Service to Mukunda.
So this is verse number 35, a very important verse. Yamadibhir yoga pathai
Yamadebhir yogapathai
kamalobha hato muhu
kamalobha hato muhu
mukunda sevaya yadvat
mukunda sevaya yadvat
tathatma daddha na samyati.
tatha madha na samayati.
Yes. So Yamadbhir yoga pathaihi. Yam adibhir yoga pathaihi. Yoga patha means one who is on the path of yoga. And what kind of yoga? Yam adibhir. Yam adibhir. Now, what kind of yoga is this? Yama, niyama, pranayam, dhyan, dharana. What kind of yoga path is this? This is dhyan yoga. Yam adibhir yoga pathaihi. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system. Yama means restraining ourselves. Yam adibhir yoga pathai. So it is true that by practicing this yoga path, kama lobha hato muhu. Hato means destroyed, relieved. Kama lobha hato muhu. One can get relief from the disturbances of desires and lust. So if you are on the path of Dhyan Yoga, Narad Muni is saying that you will get some benefit. And what are those benefits? You will get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust, Kama and Lobha. You will get relief. But you will not get what? Mukunda Sevaya Yadvat Tathat Amadha Na Shamyati. You will not get that kind of satisfaction from the path of this yoga. That satisfaction you will get from serving Lord Mukunda. Mukunda Yad Sevaya, Mukunda Sevaya Yadvat. The same satisfaction you will not get. When you will serve Lord Mukunda, you will get complete satisfaction. And that kind of satisfaction you will not get if you are on the path of yoga, of Yam Adibhir. Yam Adibhir means practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system. So Narad Muni is clearly and very clearly highlighting the process of Bhakti Yoga as superior to other paths. And other path, he is giving example of Dhyan Yoga, where he is saying Yam Adibhir Yoga Pathai Kama Lobha Hatomuhu. You will get some benefit of getting rid of this Kama and Lobha, but you will not get that deep satisfaction what is received by serving Lord Mukunda. That satisfaction you will not get from this path. So he's encouraging Vyasdev once and again that kindly describe Bhakti Yoga of the Lord nicely and don't get into all this Dhyan Yoga, Karma Yoga and so on and so forth. Okay. Now we will request Anuradha Mataji. I think she did not get much chance, so we will request.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
Mataji, please
Prabhu.
read from here.
Ah, yes, Prabhu.
Hmm.
Purport 1.6.35. Engagement more powerful than only restraint. The senses are considered like venomous serpent, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narada Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda.
Yes. So the path of Bhakti Yoga is path of engagement. We have natural propensity to act, and Bhakti Yoga engages us. And how many types of engagement we have read? In Nectar of Devotion, we have read 64 type of engagements, which is very natural for us. And there are a lot of engagements, and these engagements purify us. Whereas on the other hand, the path of Dhyan Yoga is a path of restraint, which is contrary to our intrinsic nature. Our intrinsic nature is to act. But Dhyan Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, etc. calls for restraint of our senses. But Bhakti Yoga calls for engagement of the senses in spiritual activities. So engagement is more powerful than only restraint. I would rather like to say devotional engagement is very powerful than spiritual restraint. So that is what the meaning here is. Okay, now we are on the last slide, or probably the second last slide. Mataji, please can you read this? We will finish this
Yes,
chapter
Prabhu.
today. Yeah.
34. Yes, Prabhu. 34-38. Narada concludes instructions and departs. 36. As you have asked and for your satisfaction, I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization. 37. Having thus spoken to Vyasadeva, Narada departed, vibrating his veena and wandering at his free will. 38. All glories to Narada Muni, who glorifies the Lord while taking pleasure himself and enlivening all the distressed souls.
Yes, so this is the 38th verse, means this is the last verse of this chapter. So Narad Muni is now concluding. He's saying that you asked me what happened after the Bhaktivedantas left. I have given you a full detailed account. I have given you with my own personal realizations, my birth, my activities. I have explained you with my own experience. I'm telling you, I'm not telling you simply by reading some books. I'm telling you with my own experience that glorify devotional service directly. Don't beat around the bush. Don't confuse people with lot of other subject matter. And having thus spoken Vyasdev to Vyasdev, Narad departed, vibrating his veena, Narayana, Narayana, and wandering at his own free will. He went away. And then all glories to Narad Muni, who glorifies the Lord while taking pleasure himself and enlivening all the distressed souls. Probably we may have no slide more. Okay. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. I am very grateful that you stayed a little longer to complete this chapter. So we complete one chapter in one class today. It was a story. So this will help us to move faster in Bhagavatam. When we have mostly story, then probably we'll progress faster and so on. So any comments, any realizations, anything you like to share now, please kindly share. I hope you understood the chapter, you enjoyed the chapter. It was a story, a very graphical story, a very enlivening story. So now I'd like to hear from you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Prabhu,
Mataji.
very nice about Narada. So this one we don't know that much, but you told everything, explained very nicely, Prabhu.
Yes.
It was very
Thank you, Mataji.
effective.
So
Thank
you can
Prabhu.
read the purports. You can once again go through the chapter in your free time.
Yes,
So I have tried to cover up all the major points in the purport, but you know we cannot cover everything.
yes,
So if you now go through the chapter and the purports, you
yes,
probably will relish it even more. Yeah.
yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Any other remarks or learnings or takeaways?
Very nice class, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the encouragement. Thanks a lot.
Nice
Very
story,
good.
Prabhuji. Very nice.
Nice story. So now you have a different idea of Narad Muni. Generally, when you see Narad Muni's character in films, it is portrayed a little bit negatively, I would say. But now you can see what kind of a personality he is, right, directly from the verses of Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I think not much to hear from
Prabhuji,
the
can you
audience.
share the next sevas or Mangala Charan and
Yeah. Okay. So Rakesh Prabhuji, that is your department.
सॉरी कल सुबह तक दे दूंगा प्रभु
Okay. So you will get it soon, Prabhuji. Don't worry.
Thank
And
you.
the class next week will not be happening because on 25th there is a Sunday and there is a important ceremony at our home. We will not be able to get time to prepare for the class. So holiday in the next class.
No, but Prabhu, the Rath Yatra is there, correct? Next Sunday.
Yeah, Rath Yatra is also there.
Yeah.
You're
So
right.
there is a lot of invitations. I will be also going.
Yeah, so you can enjoy the Rath Yatra festivities on Sundays at your respective places. Yeah, and like to mention to Mangala Mataji. Mataji, you are also invited in that ceremony, so please join us.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Other also who are outstation are also actually invited. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Nice class.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Jivan Prabhu, you are also invited. I will send you the message.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.